So she's going to deal with this, and then I'm going to try to remind you of the overall goals of what we started with, and kind of hit some high points coming through, and then bring it to a point with regard to our children. And we'll do that after a break in the second hour. And hopefully we'll have you out of here. My plan is to have you out of here by 8 o'clock and send you on your way. So I'm going to get out of the way, turn it back over to the esteemed expert, Dr. Janet Kinney.
Hello. Thank you. I don't know if I see myself that way. I just thought, I got an hour, I got to talk fast. So I never go, do I have enough to fill the time? It's just more like, how fast do I have to go? Okay, so I changed the title. I still like my imps kind of thing, but we're going to look at parenting. And along with what Stephen was saying last night as far as, yes, I'm looking at a whole lot of stuff within divorced families, but it does extend. It extends to blended families. It extends to intact families. So a lot of these, it's kind of hard to just go, no, this is only important in this one setting. So a lot of this really is. We want to look at, why we're even considering any of this stuff. And all of that is so that we deal with things before they explode. We can avoid a whole lot of crises or traumas or situations because we know how to deal with them in advance. I see a lot of clients. In fact, I saw as many this week as I usually do in a 5-day week. And I did it all on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I kept telling Samantha, she just kept extending my hours. She books for me. And I'm like, what are you doing to me? Wednesday, 10 until 9. And I had a 45-minute break for the whole day. I'm like, you're killing me here. And Thursday was 11 till 8:30 with no break. And I'm going, you're killing me here. All right. I have clients that I look at, and I look ahead, and I'm going, next 4 hours are easy. Not that they're easy because they're not issues, but it's not putting out fires, putting out another fire. It's that whole crisis kind of thing. So you'll come in and it's just, they're all in crisis, and then we're putting that, and we're not getting anywhere. And so I can keep seeing them, and those are the tough ones for me. I know it's just going to drain me because this person's falling apart again, and I can't get anywhere to where we can avoid the fire in the first place. We deal with the whole where's Caleb? The whole drought of summer. I was thinking the drought summer, Selah kind of thing. We have that in Texas. We have the drought. We are so dry there. It's just common sense. Don't throw your cigarette butts out the window. It just kind of goes that way. Here, you guys are damp if you want to do that, I guess. But, our one time that they called to have us evacuate our house this past summer, I don't know if you've heard about all the fires that were going up, and a lot of Bastrop got burnt down, and there was huge, just west of Austin, huge fires. People's houses. There's one in northwest Austin. Houses being burned down, and we got a call. I was at work. Jack got a call to evacuate the house, and it was just a homeless person was trying to cook in the woods, and people lost their homes, and so. But we want to put out avoid things because we have knowledge. And that's the whole key behind all this is let's have some knowledge. Let's try to be smart about how we do things so we don't have certain fires, or when they start sparking, we know how to put them out. So parenting in the 21st century, it's a lot different than it would have been in the 20th century. I sit there with teenagers or even people in their 20s, and I know they think like I should be have been on the Flintstones or something when I talk about, well, we didn't have a microwave when I was a kid. Computers? No, that wasn't even a thing until I was we had a huge computer lab when I did my undergrad, but people didn't have PCs. So, kids they don't know any different than to have electronics. But parenting is very different. This whole, you can't go, okay, well, you can only watch TV for 2 hours a week. Okay, fine. that didn't work with Sarah. Okay, fine. I'll go on my DS for 3 hours. No DS. Okay, well, I'll go on my Kindle, and I'll just do that for a couple hours. No Kindle. All right, well, fine. I'll go on my phone. I mean, it's just that parenting now is so much different. So I have to use terms, electronics, anything. It's like I felt like an airline person. Anything that has an on-off switch you cannot use. Please turn them all off, right? Maybe you guys don't fly as much as me, but they say that all the time now. They don't just say phones. So let's look at this. So I thought we'd start off with a little thing. It's a little fun. Caleb helped me with this one. So I don't have control, though. Yay! Okay, we're going to look at some things through a child's eyes. All right, so here's some little notes that were written. Dear God, I went to this wedding and they kissed right in church. Is that okay? Dear God, in Bible times, did they really talk that fancy? Dear God, I'm an American. What are you? Dear God, it says up there, I bet it is very hard for you to love all of everybody in the whole world. There are only 4 people in our family, and I can never do it. Dear God, if you watch in church on Sunday, I will show you my new shoes. Dear God, if we come back as soon as something, please don't let me be Jennifer Horton, because I hate her. Dear God, maybe Cain and Abel would not kill each so much if they had their own rooms. It works for my brother. Dear God, if you give me genie lamp like Aladdin, I will give you anything you want except my money or my chess set. That hits home a little bit, doesn't it sometimes? God, if you'll do this, I'll do anything for you. Well, except this or this or this. But, okay, we're not going at adults tonight. So, dear God, we read Thomas Edison made light. In our Sunday school, they said, you did it. So I bet he stole your idea. Sincerely, Donna. Dear God, if you let the dinosaur not extinct, we would not have a country. You did the right thing. Dear God, please send Dennis Clark to a different camp this year. Dear God, thank you for the baby brother, but what I prayed for was a puppy. Okay. So how kids see things. We want to remember and we can laugh at this, but this is kids' brains. They are just so different. And you can't go, well, I wasn't like that as a kid. Yes, you were. You just don't remember. Because the idiotic stuff kind of just disappears. We don't remember it as such. We can remember maybe some funny little things, but we don't really remember how we were processing information. I'm lucky if I remember yesterday at this point, but I definitely don't remember how I was processing information when I was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. I can tell you, I really remember really clear, though, at 5, that I was thinking, I was with my mom, and mom and dad had split, and we're in a different house, and I really remember that I could picture my dad was going to come save me, and he was going to use one of those TV trays. Do you guys remember TV trays? We used to, that was a new thing you set up. You don't just eat on your lap. You had a TV tray. So you had a TV tray, but we had these metal ones, and we used to use them to shovel snow because we didn't really have all those snow shovels. But we had these metal TV trays, and I just pictured them doing that army crawl down our driveway and using one of these TV trays, and I don't know who was shooting at them, but somebody was from the house, and he was going to come rescue me. I remember that one really clear. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was really a wish. I don't know. But it was just I know I pictured that a lot, that he was going to come and take me away. Well, what was he taking me away from? My mom. But, it was kids can think things really strange. It's not like my mom beat me or anything. But we can process. But I don't remember all the other crazy thoughts I had. I just know I had them. So we want to look at kids see things a lot differently. So anyhow, with today's family, we want to think, here's it. See, there's me sitting in the chair, but I have a skirt on. My parents are divorced, both remarried. I have 6 new siblings, 1 bathroom, a new school, and I'm doing very nicely. Thank you. In general, kids are going to do okay, but we want to be receptive to what can help in that process. What do we need to do, with our kids anyhow? The 21st century doesn't just bring about a lot of divorce, a lot of blended families, these families that you don't even know how to describe them. It brings about 2 parents in the workforce. It brings about hectic lives. Now, I'm not saying I think they were busy back in the old days too, okay? I know my grandma, she worked. I remember having 2 chairs. She did hair, and 2 chairs in her home. People come, and those chairs, they were really cool because you can tip them back, and the sink's there. But she worked hard. You can remember, I know, my dad worked hard when he was younger. His dad probably worked hard. But it's the busyness. There's a busyness nowadays that we didn't have if you back up 50, 60 years ago. You could be in one place and it wasn't all this commotion that goes on now. So it is a much busier place. People are time and energy are our limited resources, and people are spent. You can even see what's happening to church. I was talking to my dad the other day, and when I got in church, and it's been 25 years, we would have 3-week revivals. And I remember at that time, listen to people go, yeah, when I got in church 25 years ago, we'd have 3-month revivals. And I was thinking, man, I could never handle that. Now people can't even handle 3 weeks. And they got to where they gave us Monday off because it was too much for us. So we'd only go 6 days a week with church every night. And it's the preaching, and then you're in there for 2 altar calls were 2-3 hours long. When's the last time you guys had an altar call? I mean, I know at our church, they're not going 2-3 hours. We're lucky if they go 15-20 minutes. People are exhausted. So we want to look at, there's a lot of changes. So being there and sensitive for kids is our goal. So we want to look at, all right, what can we do? So we want to be co-parenting. And I changed it. I had it another way, but co-parenting in the intact, the divorced, or the blended family. So what are some things? And some of these might only apply to the blended or the divorced. Some of them might be really difficult to do outside the intact family. Again, the first one's going to be the easiest, but like Stephen pointed out, you don't always have agreement in an intact family. With my husband sitting here the last time, I'll say to him, you're making Sarah's life difficult for Sarah's husband. Because we'll disagree on stuff. He'll get up, he'll be in bed. He goes to bed about midnight, I go to bed about 2. Sarah's supposed to go to bed at 11. She's homeschooled, it works, okay? We all get up around 9, 10. So it works well. She'll come out sometimes, though, and I refuse to talk to Sarah after midnight. She came out one night, it was like 12:15. No, it was like 1:45. She came out, she said, will you get me some chocolate milk? No. But will you pour me some chocolate milk? No. And I just pointed at the clock. We got a big clock. I just point at it. So Sarah's getting chocolate milk. She drops the chocolate milk container. And then she wants me to come help her clean up the chocolate milk. No. Here comes Dad out of the bedroom. Guess what he did? He cleaned up her milk and poured her milk. And who do you think he was mad at? So you can have arguments, you can have disagreements in an intact family. Because I refuse to communicate or interact with Sarah after midnight. It's my time. You go to bed. If you need to go to bed at 9, then go to bed at 9, and then you can get up at 11:30 and ask me to get you milk. I'll do that. But not after midnight. I'm done with that. So, but, like I said, we can have disagreements. So it can be tough in an intact, but it's still not going to be as difficult. But you can do it when there is a divorce, okay? And The big difference, as we all know, is that often one person wants it and the other one doesn't. Or it's kind of brought on by one person. It's not usually a mutual kind of thing. It might be like, yes, my hand was pushed because of your behaviors, and then I had to do something. But it's still usually not it's a struggle there, right? How do we do this? So then to go, okay, well, let's just get along when it comes to parenting. We have enough discussion in the intact families when we're living together and I still say, I love you. It's harder to do it when we don't have that. And then blended, well, you talking to my kid that way? Okay, we can go all different ways, right? Well, you don't treat your kid this way, but you want mine to work this way. So, but anyhow, I'm just going to do general. So when we look at this, we want to keep both parents involved. Do the research. If you don't believe what I say, go do the research. There's lots and lots and lots of evidence in there. We want both parents involved. So not only do we want pictures, but do phone calls. It amazes me the amount of pettiness that adults engage in. And it's like, oh my goodness, can't you just grow up for your child's sake? You really want to do this? Well, Dad got me a phone so I could call him and I could tell him anytime I'm mad at Mom. And Mom's taking that phone away. You're not having that phone. I mean, it's just craziness. Dad shouldn't be given the phone. Mom shouldn't be taken away. The kids should have access to a phone. Without it being, Mom, can I borrow your cell phone? So however we need to work that out, I'm all for time limits. We don't want kids being called at 10 o'clock at night. I'm all for time limits. But it's, how do you make it? So you want, write letters. We don't really do that anymore, but we do email. You can do all these other ways, right? They have electronics, texting. You could call. They want to ask lots of questions. You want to attend events, and you want them, allow them. I do remember with Samantha going, well, I'm not telling him about her event. It's not my job. If he wants to know, he could call the school and find out for himself. That was petty. So we want to move past the petty. It's like, because, yes, I might be irritated, but it's not about me. And we want to say, who's it about? So if we keep our focus on our kids, what am I doing? How do I avoid the pettiness? How do I avoid acting like a child? Oh, I'll show him. Really, the only one you're hurting, and you might show him, you might show her, but the only one you're really hurting is your child. So we want both parents involved. We want to keep the child's schedule the same as much as possible. Routines offer security and stability. And we all know when we're in disarray as an adult and things are really cloudy and we don't know what's happening, we know the anxiety and the apprehension that can cause in us. Why do we want a kid to live in that? Now, does it mean you get to dictate what goes on at your ex's house? No. Does it mean you get to dictate what your kids of your spouse that aren't your kids in a blended family, they get to do? No, you don't get to dictate. You want to do it by agreement. What can we agree on? It's not my way or the highway. And we have to compromise a little bit. We have to bend a little bit. And if we don't like it, right? It would irritate me to death when Samantha would come home on Tuesday, after he got extended weekends, or before that on Sundays, and she hadn't brushed her hair or brushed her teeth in 3 days. That would irritate me. And with our girls and long hair and all the huge things, would it do her any good for me to sit there that hour it takes me to brush her hair out and blast her dad the whole time? Not at all. And there was no way I was going to make the man do it if he didn't want to do it. So what could I do? Teach her. Try to remember. I'd usually talk to her on Saturday. Hey, remember to brush your hair and brush your teeth? Go do it right now. As soon as we hang up, go do that. So it's, how do we do that? But we want to try to keep the same schedule. That means bedtimes. Okay? That's a big one. But that can help kids a lot. Family rules should be made clear to children, and they should be consistently enforced. We might even have to agree to disagree on some of those rules, but we want to enforce them. It does no good, okay, Jack and I are split, and Sarah's at my house, and she messes up at school, and I say no electronics for a week. Well, now she goes to Dad's, and, well, I don't care what your mother says. That doesn't do any good. Or she's at his house, and she's giving him a lot of lip and talking back, and he puts a consequence in, and, well, he probably deserved to be talked to that way anyhow. We're adults. We're going to survive. She may not, if we're doing that stuff. And so we do want it. We want to keep this consistency. We want to agree on some rules, especially when it comes to school, and it comes to homework, it comes to sports, it comes to all these things. And how do we? I did one of the smartest things, and I don't even know why I even thought about doing it, when I did get divorced, and I had it put in a divorce decree, and my ex-husband wasn't even thinking at that point, but that he would abide by my rules of dress and conduct for Samantha. He had no idea what that meant at that time, because I had just gotten in church. I'd only been in church for a couple months. But it meant that he wasn't cutting her hair, and he wasn't putting her in pants, and he wasn't, there was a lot of stuff, but it really helped. Like I said, I'm sure it was God. I do know where it came from, but it was just a wise thing to put in there. But, having that agreement and not going anywhere. There we're going. Okay. We want to keep the promises that we make to our children. Did I skip one? Let me go back. I don't know what happened to that one. Oh, well. All right. We want to keep the promises that we make to our children, all right? I'm going to come on Saturday. I'm going to take you here. Don't let other things come up, or don't promise. Say, I'll try. Or don't even tell them about them ahead of time and call them that morning. Hey, would you like to go here? Work on it, but don't make promises. Kids are really hurt by adults that make promises and then they don't come through with them because something else comes up. And if something comes up, what does that communicate to the child? Number one, they're not as important. They're not a priority. And number two, you can't be trusted. So we don't want to communicate that to them. Now, I know that sometimes, something horrible could happen, right? I don't know, hurricane. Yes, a hurricane could prevent us from going to the beach on Saturday. Okay. So there could be something. There could be a major car accident. But not if it's work. Priorities need to stay focused. And if we promise our kids, we need to come through. We promise them a meal. We promise them this. We need to try to come through with those. We want to keep those. We want to teach our children to use positive self-talk. The best way to teach them to do that is use it yourself. There are a lot of people that beat themselves up all the time. They say negative stuff to themselves. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to say something? Your mouth opened. What? Oh, okay. Armani, your mom wants you to straighten up. I don't know. Sorry, so we want to teach them positive self-talk. If all they hear you is nagging and nagging and nagging and being critical, what's in their head? Okay? It's that nagging and nagging, and I'm no good, and I can't do this right, and I can't, I never do anything right, and plus they stop hearing you anyhow. But teach them. It could be specific. I'm really good at math. I aced my long division test. It could be in general, I'm very musically inclined. It could be anything, whether it's specific or general. Teach them to have that. Because they'll come out, because they turn a whole lot on themselves, and it's, that whole guilt thing. So if you get away from that, it's, okay, what are they thinking in their head? When they say, I hate myself, or I can't ever do anything right. Coming back and go, yes, you can. That's not changing that self-talk. I give adults and I give kids. They all have to come up with a list. Adults, I make them come up with a list of 20. Kids, they have to come up with a list of 10. Things that they like about themselves. And it can't be anything like, I'm 5 foot, or I'm Caucasian, or just those neutral kind of things. It's got to be something really about them, their core, right? I'm male. No. What do you like? And then I make them post it. They have to say them every morning. That's their homework. Go through that and read that every morning. Got to change this because you're too mean to yourself. You're being really negative in your own head. So get out of it. I'm not saying ignore the bad stuff that's happening in your life or the things where you're falling short. You can address that. But we want to teach kids positive self-talk. We want them to feel pretty confident. We want to give children some responsibilities. Kids having chores, okay, is really good. What does it do for people to pay tithes? Anybody? Caleb? Okay, you're setting a great example and a model for your children. What does it do for the adult who's paying tithes? Discipline? Yeah. What else? Makes you feel a part of what's going on. You're connected, right? It's my church, not that church. Okay. What else? Spiritual liberty or blessings, right? Don't we kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I know if I don't pay my tithes, the bad things are happening. So I get covered, I get blessed, I give God all the credit for a lot of things because I pay my tithes. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter whether or not you pay your tithes because the Bible says whatever you give to God, you get back.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if I don't pay my tithes? So if I give nothing, then I get nothing back, right? Okay. And I want something because I like his protection. My car's in the shop right now this weekend. I'm waiting to hear how much. And I'm going, oh, just make it like 300, Lord. Only 300, not 1,300, about 300. So I don't know. We haven't heard. Jack hasn't gotten the call yet of how much it'll be. But it's like, and to me, that's God's covering. Make it so it's not. Doesn't mean it won't break down. It just don't make it too expensive. Okay. So the same is true of kids doing chores, having some responsibilities. It helps them to feel important. It helps them to buy in to the family, helps them to feel confident, and they get blessed. And if they actually do it without you having to tell them 100 times, they're really blessed because their parents are happy with them. And then they do more for them. But it's like, it's good for them. It helps them to feel part of that family. And so, let's say it's separate households. And you're going from one to another. You're only there on the weekend. They're only there for the weekends. Okay? First, third, fifth weekends. Okay? 5, 6 weeks in the summer. And I get I just want to have fun with them while they're here. I don't want to make them work. Then they're not going to feel like that's their home. Is it their home or isn't it? Because having responsibilities makes you feel really part of it. For me to feel really a part of his home, I would have done the dishes after we ate today. I didn't. But it's, if we do stuff, then we feel like we belong, and so it's good. Don't look at it as, I'm putting them on that. No, you're teaching them to be responsible. You're also telling them, I know you can do this. Plus, you're part of this family. So we want everybody contributing, whoever's in the household, even if it's for this amount of time or the whole amount of time. Whether it's blended, whether they're 5. 5-year-olds can do stuff. So we want to give them some responsibilities. We want to encourage and promote their social life, their interests, and their hobbies. This is a huge one, especially when they hit about 14. Because if you have separate households or if you have blended families, sometimes there's chaos here, and it's just like you can get lost in the shuffle depending on how many kids there are in a home. I mean, when you start out and you add one at a time, that's a lot different than having 3 and then adding 2 more. Because you have that system. You know, it takes a little while to get that. But when you have separate homes, then it's like, well, it's Mom's weekend, but I really want to go to this whatever event. So-and-so's having a birthday party. It's Dad's weekend. Well, how do you do that on Saturday? You know, it's how do you make it work? And it really is being creative. And you can do it. I'm the first to admit that I did not get along very well with my ex-husband. There was conflict there. Do you know Samantha never went to daycare? She might have gone a couple days. Even with us being split, she never went to daycare. Because he had her during the day and I had her at night. He worked nights. She would go there every day during the week. And then every other weekend, summers, we mixed it. There were occasions that he couldn't take her, I had to go to work, kind of thing, that we had a standby, that she would go there. But you can work that. I knew when my ex-sister-in-law's kids' birthdays were. Her cousins. I didn't have to go through my ex. I called my ex-sister-in-law, you know, or they had the liberty to call me. She did not miss the Corey family events because I would make sure she got there if her dad didn't. But it wasn't going to be on me that said, no, you can't go. No, it's my weekend. We have plans. Now, it could be if we were on a quiz tournament. Well, we have a quiz tournament that weekend. You know, she was active in that, but that would be a good reason. We aren't in town. And that wasn't my call. It'd be her call. And so you can work it. Believe me. And if my ex-husband, he would glare at me. He hated me. He was so angry with me. For the most part, there for a couple years it got really rough. But for the most part, we worked it together. And it wasn't initially that it was really rough. It was after a few years. Then it got rough. Then it got better. But it's like, how do we work this? How do we make this transition, and how do we keep it going? And you want to encourage and promote that social life. The funniest time, let me tell you this. It was, you know, in the summers, I got to decide the summer schedule one year, and then the next summer he could decide the schedule. Well, during that bad time, I decided the schedule, and he didn't want her going to church camp, but I got to decide the schedule, so she went to church camp, so he made sure he knew when she was going to church camp, because he got to decide the schedule for the next year. So he made sure he had her during that time the next year, but what he didn't realize is she jumped ages, and so her camp was the week before, and he made it to where she could go anyhow. See, God takes care of it. You know, it just does, it works out. And we split, she's 18 months old. So this was years after. Like I said, it was good, then it went bad. So it can happen. But it can work out. All right, we want to make sure the child has access to their familiar things. Like I mentioned with Sarah, Ducky. Well, if Jack and I were split, she would need to take Ducky to Daddy's. Not like, well, he's got to get his own thing. Or I know kids that they get a DS or they get clothes that are special to them or whatever. And they have to, it's got to stay at Mom's house, it's got to stay at Dad's house. It has to, is it the kids or isn't it? Did you buy it? Now I understand the whole sending it and never getting it back. I've been there, I've done that, so I do understand that. But again, you put it on the kid. Well, you know, you can take it. It's yours. And just like if Sarah goes to her friend's house, though, I say, okay, you can take it, but you got to remember to bring it back. You don't want to lose it. But if it's the child's and those special things, if it's a blanket or an animal or something like that, make sure that they have their familiar things. It's good that if you do have separate homes, that if you can work it, that they have a bedroom. It could be a shared bedroom. I know my brother, every other weekend, he gained 4 kids. Well, you're not going to have 4 so they all have rooms of their own. So they're like shared kind of things for the kids that were there all the time with the kids coming in and that, but they still had their spot. It wasn't, here's a couch for you. Here we'll blow up an air mattress. That's not going to make it feel like it's your home. You want to support the time spent with each parent. Value that. Value the time that your child has with the other parent. Do you know parents get jealous of each other? And I'm talking about in intact families, in marriages. They can get jealous of each other. They can get jealous of the kid. We just don't want to go there. So we want to value that time. It is equally as important for me to come without Sarah sometimes as it is with Sarah. I value that time. I'm laughing because it's really my personal time alone because she and her dad spend lots of time together. But don't make your child responsible for making adult decisions. 10-year-olds, who do you want to live with? 12-year-olds, who do you want to live with? I mean, what a decision. Hey, Vince, mom and dad are splitting. Who do you want to live with? Grandpa. Right, exactly. All 5 are coming, Dad. Look out. But there's adult decisions that need to be made. And I use that as a major one, but there's a whole lot of minor ones that the adults need to just make the decision. Are you going to go to camp, Girl Scout camp? Are you going to go on vacation with mom? They don't need to make that decision. The adults should, because it's just going to go, I don't, because we would go, I don't know what to do. So if it's hard for us, it's going to be really hard for them. Now, you can get their input, but it doesn't mean they're making the decision. So I'm not saying you don't include them at all, but they don't need to be making the adult decisions. You want to limit your child's exposure to individuals that you might be dating or that are involved with romantically. Obviously, this is in a divorce situation, not in intact or blended families. Hopefully, you would want to greatly limit it if it's in an intact one. But, because until it gets serious, they don't need that. They don't need to be bonding and doing all that until it is at a level where it may proceed further. All right, parents should encourage their children to ask questions and should answer their children's questions honestly and thoroughly. When talking about the other parent, be truthful but be kind. We want to react to shockers with semi-interested boredom. Shockers will come. Kids will, I liked my other, intelligent, manipulative. They are manipulative. And if they have you split, and I don't care if you're living all in the same home, okay? They're going to they're going to try to divide you. It's divide and conquer, right? So you want to stay united. You want to stay on the same level playing area and put the adults here and the kids here. Don't join the kids. It's all trouble if you join those kids. But kids will do stuff. Sarah's really good about asking me. I say no, she asks her dad, and he says yes. So what I'm doing is trying to train Jack to go, did you already ask your mother? But she does that. But I remember Samantha, I've already told you this before. Samantha coming home and going, oh, I'm just Cinderella at Dad's house. Really? How's that? Oh, Robin, and that was his living girlfriend. Robin just makes me work all the time. Not going to have gotten mad about that. Well, how dare she treat my child that way? No, I know my child, and I know I've said this before, and I said, does she by any chance pay you for the chores? Oh, yeah. Because Samantha was really in the money. I just know her. No, they're playing you. They're trying to manipulate you. But they'll do that. They want to divide and conquer. I told Jack our best thing going for us is there's 2 of us and only 1 of her. Okay? So we have the odds, but we have to stay strong. We don't want them to divide and conquer. So address those shockers. They're there for a reason. And we don't want to be inappropriate. Jump on the phone and tell the other person off or something. Get really mad at your spouse. Sarah still does that, like I said, in our home. She'll want to blame stuff on her dad that she didn't do it. Yeah. Kids will they went past that. Wasn't me. I didn't do that. Well, that's Dad's fault. Well, that's Mom's fault. Well, Mom said I could do this. Well, she said you could cook. She didn't say you could burn the house down. So, it's just, there are going to be differences. All right, so you want to keep your problems to yourself. What that means is you can tell the adults if you want, but don't tell your kids, and don't tell them when your kid is around. I talk to a lot of clients, and they're on the phone. I can hear their kids in the background. I meet with some, and they bring their kids with them. And they have foul language, and they're telling them everything that's going on, and here's this 2 or 3-year-old. Now, it's okay if they're 1. They're not going to know it. Plus, if they're saying that to me and using that language, and they're using it at home anyhow. But it's still, once they get a little older, I already told you about the little 5-year-old I had come in, Didn't I? Oh. I told somebody lately. Okay, so I was seeing this couple, and they're talking to me. Their 5-year-old and their 2-year-olds in my next office, because I had it set up as a play, and that's where I would see kids over there, but they could play while I was seeing the adults. So I'm seeing these adults, and I'm like, can I just have and I named her, can I have her just come in? I just want to ask her just some simple questions. I'm not going to get her involved in this, but can I just ask her a couple questions? Okay. She came in, and I let her sit in my chair, which spins. Okay. I don't usually let kids sit in my spinny chair. And so she's sitting there, and I'm like, here, you can sit in my chair. And I asked her, I went through some questions. Does Daddy get mad at Mommy? Does Mommy get mad at Daddy? What does she say? Mommy says, and she used the letter of the alphabet, and said the whole word. Here's a 5-year-old. And what's Daddy do? It's just, and having it come out of her mouth. And she was very open with me. And they sat there and took it, because I'd just say, oh, and this. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I let her spin, and she left. And what are you doing to your kids? And I said to them, stop doing this, or I'm going to report you. Get it together, or split up, but stop abusing your kids. Because them having to live like this is not okay. So we want to watch what we're doing. You want to keep that conversation to yourself, okay? We don't want our kids to know about it. I'm not saying you can't talk to anybody, but like I said, kids are listening. Keep the child out of the middle. Did your dad tell you this? Did your mom tell you this? And that's in all 3 kind of families. We want to communicate directly with the other parent. That's the best way to do it. We want to stop fighting and work hard to get along with each other. Again, that's in all 3 kinds of families. We want to make a list of things that are most important you want for you and to teach your child. If you're going to co-parent, how can you do it if you don't even know what the goal is? So you need to have conversation. You need to have a list. What do you want your child to learn? It helps to have common goals, right? Can you imagine, here's a football team, and they go out, and they have different goals. They have the ball, but they have different goals. This one, he's going to run so he can catch it. This one, he's going short because he wants to pass. The quarterback's thinking, well, I'm going to do a Hail Mary, but no one's down there. I mean, if they didn't have goal, they didn't know where they were going, it would look like chaos. We've seen it look that way at times, right? I mean, I've watched football, and not very often, but you'll go, oh my goodness, they didn't know what they were doing. right? Someone got the call wrong. We don't want to do that in our family, right? If you're punting, know you're punting. But communicate that. Know where you're going. Know what you're teaching. And do that ahead of time. Don't try to buy your child's love. And remember that kids need mom and dad to raise them, to teach them what is important to help them when they have problems. They need both. The other person, whether you like them, love them, are infatuated with them, however you feel about them, they're equally as important to that child. And again, that bars, unless they're incarcerated, they're not as equally important. You have to change stuff up. And again, you be honest, but kind. To say dad's on a 10-year vacation doesn't work. Okay? You gotta be honest, but kind. We want our kids to be able to trust us. If we're not honest with them, they won't trust us, okay? Because they'll find out. They will know eventually. We also don't want to dump on them, because then they'll resent us. We don't want to take away their childhood. Okay, so we can run into this and have some problems, okay? And kids will say this stuff. But you know what's funny? Sarah does not have a stepfather. She told her dad she wished she did. It was just as hurtful as saying, "You're not my dad." Because she looked at him and go, "I wish I had a stepdad." Because she was like, "I don't like you." Kids are going to say that to you. It doesn't matter who you are. They're just going to say that. There are times when they are really upset with you. When we want to remember that, given divorce, given blended families, given who you married. Vincent, did you have anything to do with who your mom chose to marry? Okay. He had no choice in it. It's still his dad. He didn't get to choose his mom and dad. But then when you have the whole divorce, they don't have any say in that either. You got to remember, it's the adults that are making the decisions. And I know we can get our hands are pushed at times, and we feel like, well, I had no other option. And that could be true. We had no other option, and we had to follow through with something that we didn't want any, it was just the appropriate thing that we needed to do. But with blended families, you're making the choice. You're choosing that these two adults love each other. I guarantee you these kids don't. Doesn't mean they can't get along, but it's going to take some work. And if you just go, oh, and it doesn't work the same as when you're dating and they all are happy together because you leave and they go home. So right then they're friends. That's a lot different. Like have those people you play with move in with you. Would you ladies ever like to live together? Now you seem to be good friends. Would you want to live in the same place? 24/7, same kitchen. Yeah, no. But that's what we do with kids. Well, you guys were... Okay. It'd be hard, but that's what we do. We here, you live with them. I had this lady that and she didn't want divorced. It was her husband, went with someone else, and she has 3 kids. And she said, I was thinking of, moving in with this other lady and maybe sharing a house. And, financially it'd work good for both of us. And she has 4 kids. No, don't do that. Would anybody here think it was okay for this woman who has 3 kids to move in with this woman that has 4 kids? Put them all in the same house? That'd be tough, wouldn't it? Yet we do that with blended families. We take this woman and this man, we put them married, and we put these kids all together. And most are going, oh, don't, with the 2 women. But it's the same kind of struggles. I'm not saying don't do blended families. I'm saying it's tough. And even if you haven't, and some of them structured that, well, they're all gone the same weekend, and they're all here the same weekend. Who's that set up for? That's set up for the parents. So they have a weekend off. Because ideally you would do it, no, we have your kids this weekend, and these kids are here this weekend. And they might never get to know each other, but most of them wouldn't care. You'd have a lot more peace. They get to know each other on vacations and in the summer and on the holidays, and that would be plenty for them. Because I see a lot of kids, and there are issues. So it's like this whole, don't get all bent out of shape if you're not my real mom. Okay. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if your kids never went, I wish I had a different mom? I've heard that. I haven't heard the stepmom, but I've heard, I wish I had a different mom. I wish you weren't my mom. That's okay. You can wish. Okay. This is our daughter, my son from my first marriage, John's daughter from his second marriage, and I have no idea who the one on the end is. This just, why do that? Right? They're our kids. Don't get into that. I don't introduce, this is my half-brother. I'll claim from the neck up and maybe his feet. I'll decide what half, or maybe the left half, okay? The right half doesn't work so great because we're all left-brained and, you know.
This is my right hand.
Okay. But I don't do that, you know. There's no reason to. You know, kids have a hard enough time sometimes doing it, but it really is, it's putting them in a place. And are they your kids or not? It's either I recognize Stephen as my brother or I don't. It's not like half-brother. You know, either they are your brother or you're not. Then we have this, when you say you want to speak to my parents, do you mean my mommy and her new husband, or my daddy and his new wife, or my mommy and my daddy? So sometimes it's just, you got to recognize, what we as adults want to recognize is kids can be in kind of awkward situations. I have a harder time now because I try to be real sensitive sometimes. And if I don't get a reference to a gender, now I'm just waiting for it. Because it could be I got two mommies or I've got two daddies. And but I do that with couples. I mean, not couples, if they're both there, I know what they are. But anyhow, I do that with individuals, and I'm not sure how to go until they make some gender reference to their partner. And it's hard to just not jump to conclusions, but, you know, you got these kids in there. Do we want to make a relation, like, I don't want my relationship with this brother to be less meaningful than the relationship I have with my older brother. Because if I say, well, Stephen's my half-brother, then I'm qualifying the relationship. And so if we do that with the kids, well, this is his, and this is hers, and this is ours. The one that's ours is going, because I'm in the princess seat or the prince's seat. I have more power. And then you'll have that power struggle. You know, they're picking up on it. And so then we have this too, okay, confusion. I don't know how much of this you can read. So this little girl's saying, did you realize I have 7 grandmothers? And this one's saying, are you Sue's stepsister Kate? No, I can't read it. Sue's half-sister Jean. Oh, I didn't even know you were a seller anymore. We got all these dynamics. You know, sometimes, like, yeah, Samantha has 3 grandmas and only 1 grandfather. Men die younger, or it could be different. He's living. There you go. Everybody else died. But it's like we can have all this confusion. And it really is, it does create confusion for kids sometimes. And we have to recognize that it's okay. You know, how we are going to label people, and I wouldn't do it in the same household. Sometimes, though, it's hard to define all those relationships. I definitely don't say to Sarah, Grandma's your step-grandma. I've never said that. Sarah's going, what? Who are you even talking about? Do you know who I'm even talking about? Do you? Okay. Most of the time, they're not going to even know that. And so it's like you can have those feelings as adults, and especially it's, well, I didn't like that my dad divorced my mom, and now he has a new wife, and so we're not recognizing her as grandma. Who are you hurting again? Okay? Because if they're around, then recognize them. It's just stay focused on the kids. And don't feed into any more confusion. I think I'm done. Oh, rules of thumb. I was going to sum it up, and then I'll be done, Steve. All right. Present a united front. Avoid blaming. Show resistance. Use tact. Be nice. Act like adults. Plan your conversations. Take it elsewhere. If you're fighting, you don't want to do it in front of your kids. Take it elsewhere. Look on the bright side. Work on it, and then the long view, your children's physical, spiritual, and mental health helps to avoid disagreement about daily details, okay? Focus on that. What's at risk here? Because my focus is on their physical, spiritual, and mental health. Think ahead in order to stay calm. Now I'm done.
I have a question.
Yes.
Covered twice. I talk about the balance, because we've been teaching the word modeling.
Yes?
In things that we're doing. Talk about the balance of conflict that needs to be private and conflict that is okay for them to do so that they can be modeling of conflict and from the end of the relationship, it
Okay.
will work through positive outcome, et cetera, et cetera. Because we don't want to, I don't think you believe this, we don't want to present to our kids that mom and dad never fight. Because then they get married and they're
Right.
going to have conflict.
Right.
Like, oh my goodness, something's wrong with me.
Right.
Talk about the balance.
Okay, balance would be if you have to act inappropriately when you're fighting, okay? Scripture says, be angry, sin not. If you're sinning when you're angry, take it away from kids every time. So if you're getting into, swearing at your spouse, name calling, ripping them apart, belittling them, always, always, always take it away from your kids. Okay? Screaming, out of control, throwing things, breaking things, hitting each other. And you might think, well, would none of us do that? The people I see do. So, but none of that is ever appropriate for a kid to see. They don't need that modeled to them, right? Okay, but disagreements, and you can be irrational. I'm not saying you can't be irrational when you argue, but you want to do it, with tact. So it could be, that you're actually focused on one thing and it's all this other stuff that's bothering you and it's coming out here, and so you're kind of disagreeing on something that's foolish. You can do that in front of your kids. And there's going to be. I know Sarah will come to me because Jack and I, and even sometimes when we're having a discussion and we're truly not arguing, I'm not just labeling it a discussion. We're talking about something neutral, exterior to both of us, but we both might be passionate about it. Like if we were talking, about the vote this past week or something, we might be passionate, and it might come across as we're arguing, and we're not. We're on the same side. We're in agreement. We're just passionate. Okay, so that kind of stuff. But then even when there's disagreement, I know Sarah's come and said, "Are you and Dad going to get a divorce?" And that's good to show your kids that we disagree. And I was like, no. We're just talking. We're just dealing with stuff. But we don't cross that boundary. So if it's anything that is about the child, typically it's best not to argue in front of them. No, I think he needs to do this. No, I think he needs to do that. And the kid's going, And he's just racking up, how am I going to manipulate this situation? Or he's hearing you say things that's really putting him down. So it's about that. But, how to pay the bills, the shortage of money, the things that we can get a little worked up on. You know, how did this go? Did you do this? Why did you do it this way? We're getting into that. We need to show that there's disagreement. Now, it's best to show how we problem solve. But sometimes it is that, you know what, we're just mad, we're going to our own corners, we're cooling down, and then we're going to come back. You don't want them to only just see the bad if you're heated discussion. You want to let them see like how you resolved it as well. Because there are family units, and they will decide how to disagree. I will often ask couples that come in, how did your family deal with conflict? How did they feel? How did they show affection? Because it's very different. And some with conflict, oh, we just hit it, and we yell, and we're done. Others are like, oh, we avoid at all costs. We never address it. We avoid at all costs. Others are, well, Mom just wouldn't talk to Dad for a week. That, again, is avoiding. But, that to me is manipulation. And it's being very aggressive because you're refusing them to talk. And Mom will go, will you tell your mother to pass the salt? I mean, that's ridiculous. So, yeah, you tell your father if he wants it, he can get it for himself. And that's where I was saying, some of that is, don't put the kid in the middle. It goes for all three situations, of families. But that kind of, if you're going to act childish, that's never a good thing to really show a kid. I don't know, we need to model that. Did that answer? Okay. All right. Shall we go break? Yes. And what time do you want it back? 20 after? Yes. All right. 7 minutes.